So yeah, thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Emanuel.
I'm Amiga, and we are both graduate creative from LIT and will be hosting this exciting conversation.
So sharing their experience, wisdom, and answering your questions tonight, we have 4 fantastic guests. So first up is the award-winning playwright and recent writer in residency at the National Theatre, Oladipo Agboluaje.
The incredible Mojisola Elufowoju. Award-winning director and artistic director of Utopia Theatre.
We are joined by the specialist theatre designer and community artist, Patrick Bullock. Who's known for designing and building large-scale puppets, floats and installations.
And of course, senior theatre producer Rosie Townshend. Whose vast experience spans both the subsided and commercial theatre sector.
Jeez, deep. But today's Q&A isn't about them as individual artists, but about what it means to be a part of a creative team in theatre and how you can work successfully as a collective towards a creative project. So could each of you tell us briefly about what your role is and how your role fits in the creative team?
Thank you so much, great introduction, thank you. So I'm a producer. Hands up, how many of you know what a producer does? Okay, so some of the young producers, a few others. Okay, I'll just do a little recap. But as a producer, I am one of the first people on board on a project, working with other creatives. Somebody who maybe has an idea for a project but needs a bit of help realising it. So there might be somebody who has a script and they say, oh actually I'd love to put this play on, but I don't really know how to go about it. It would be my job to come in and say, okay, well, let's have a think about that. Where should we put that on? How should we put that on? We're going to need some money. How should we get some money? How should we raise some money? And then when it gets closer to realising it, putting tickets on sale, liaising with marketing teams, booking the rest of the creative team and the freelancers and the backstage people, and seeing a show all the way through from the very moment of its idea to realising it and finishing it up and making sure everyone gets paid. It's a very varied role. It involves dealing with lots of different people and quite a lot of different skills. You've got to be a strong communicator. You've also got to have a good understanding of finances and budgets, but also just be passionate about what you do. So that's being a producer in a nutshell. Should I pass it to you?
Yeah, so I'm a writer. So normally you'd think what you do is you stay in your little cubbyhole and you write. You don't come out until you finish writing the play. But really, what I normally say is that we don't say we write a play. We say we develop a play. And why we say that is because, yes, in a sense, if it's your idea, you set the ball rolling. But you also work in collaboration with everyone else, with the director, with the designer, you work with the actors. Sometimes you write a play, you write a draft, and they workshop it. So, you get a room with the actors, you see what works, what doesn't work, you go back, you develop it again. I'm always in contact with the director, and even the music designer as well. So although it says writer, it's a very specific role, it's still very, very, particularly in theatre, film and TV, it's a very collaborative role. I worked with, my second to last play, I worked with Mojisola, who directed and produced it. And we worked very, very closely together throughout. So it wasn't just, oh, there, go write this play and then come back and your job is done. No. It's very, very, very collaborative. As a writer in theatre, your name may be on the, the posters and stuff, but it's very much a collaborative affair.
tend not to refer to myself as a director, actually. I tend to refer to myself as a theatre maker, because that's what I do. But what do? I, like Oladipo rightly pointed out, I commission writers. I then work with writers to bring their show, to bring their play and bring it to life. I work with other creatives, including a designer, actors, a lighting designer, a set designer. Sometimes I work with freelance producers if I feel like it's a huge project that if I'm directing at the same time, I'm not able to also look at all the other stuff that's happening outside the rehearsal room, then I'm bringing a freelance producer that can deal with the venues and also deal with contractual matters. Yeah, so I mean, it's very much a collaborative thing, working as a director. It's about having a vision for something, but at the same time, knowing that you need other people to realize that vision. And all those other people would be, obviously, people like some of the people sitting here today. And I've got a show coming up that needs somebody that's an expert in puppetry, so I'm sitting right next to me, so I'll be speaking to him. But yes, it's about starting the conversations very early as well. I start conversations with writers. A lot of the writers, like Oladipo rightly pointed out, I don't believe that people can kind of just walk away and just sit in a room and write something. It's more kind of a collaborative effort of reading a draft and talking about a draft with other co-collaborators and seeing where we get to by the end of the final draft. And there's never a final draft in any case. Still always in development.
Last one to speak. Making other people's dreams come true. I am a creative, but I'm also a maker. I liaise with the designers, the producers. I make things happen, and depending on what the job is, I've got to be flexible. If you want to go into that field, you always have to have some flexibility. I don't have control over the story, but I have control in how it visually is told. Again, it's collaboration. And what I always see my job as aiding the story, helping things to move ahead. It could involve the costumes. I could be involved in doing the sets. Quite a lot of the time, I'm doing nearly everything. Which is a great experience, but being able to realise that sometimes there's things you can't do and you bring other people in. It's great working with writers, and it's great working with the actors. As an example, making the props for a show, you have a sort of an idea of how they're going to be used. But then seeing them come to life is quite a magical experience. So I like to think that the creative designer and maker helps put the magic and makes it. The actors do a lot of the work, in fact most of the work, but it's to give them a set, an environment in which to produce the story. I think that's sort of covered it.
All right.
Hello? Hello.
Alright, thank you so much. Is there anything you want to say?
No, I mean, you can see them networking already, really. So that's later.
Alright, now to make sure we're getting the most out of our panelists this evening, we now want to know more about you, our audience. Quick poll. Stand up if you want to have a career in the creative arts world.
That's everyone.
Alright, stay standing if you've always wanted to have a creative career as long as you can remember. Stay standing if you think you have a fairly good understanding about all the roles that go into making of a theatre production. Alright, stay standing or stand back up if you've already taken part in a theatre production in one of these roles as a writer, director, designer, or a producer.
As of no, thank you.
Alright, so we're gonna go with Dana. So can you tell us what you've done?
So during, okay, wow, wow, okay, okay. So in lockdown March 6th, I was in Albany Screen Community. My head's been playing, sorry. What was it? In there, I was assigned to help out like with the props, tech. Basically, you name it, I was helping out, and we produced a short film in one day. It took a long time because, I'm not gonna lie, the original plan was to finish at 3 a.m. in the morning. but I did get some sleep around 8 o'clock, and I managed to the outcome in Captain News. The lockdown was alright, and the result was great. Honestly.
Thank you so much. If I can just have one more person, would you like to explain what you've done? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sita, and through my uni I studied filmmaking, so I actually tried a lot of different roles because I was trained to be interdisciplinary, but I got the chance to experiment with my abilities. Of course, it's very fun to be a AV technician, or just be performers, or just be creating the set, but I found myself mostly enjoying sound design, so I basically focused on sound design afterwards. And right now I'm audio engineer, and I create songs, music that can tell stories.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's great. So, our young producers have prepared some questions to get us started with this Q&A. So, first up, we have Dana with the first question. Ready? All right, give it a mic there.
Oh, okay. My question is for Patrick. Hi, Patrick.
Hello.
Why did you decide to be a designer, and what made you pursue it?
Why I wanted to be a designer? Well, I've always made stuff since I was a kid, and I said this earlier on. I didn't realise you could have a job doing that, so I got lost for a while. I went down the biochemistry route, but as you do. But I was absolutely rubbish at maths. I've got a very basic understanding of maths, but I couldn't do titration, but I love the pretty colours of the crystals. But I've also loved nature, and I've got a very strong interest in biology. Now, when it came to, I did illustration as a degree because it was the only arts degree that I thought had a job at the end of it, and I was very orientated into getting some work in the arts. But I found it very lonely when you're an illustrator. You're all alone, and I like people. So I became a chef for a while, and then opportunity. So but I've used all those things. So later on in life, I started to make things for parades and events, and I got involved in different arts companies because people would say, "Oh, we need food for 50 people. Can you cook for us?" And yes, of course I can cook for you. I can do that. And when a job came up, I was a shoo-in because they love you if you fed them. And so they were like, "Yeah, you might get some nice food at the same time." So it was a way of getting my foot in the door. So I used that. Later on, I draw from my love of biology to create the giant puppets and creations that I do. So, yeah, can you just repeat the question? That's
Right?
have I answered that question for you?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Well, you get my life story, that's it.
I'll write it up.
Yeah, thank you. Would any of the panelists like to respond to that question?
Well, I wouldn't mind. I just think that's so amazing that, I think it's so amazing that you can, you don't have to know straight away what you want to do. And I think Patrick's story illustrates that. And I think when I first started in the industry, I think the role of a producer was quite, I think it's continually evolving and defining itself, and people often call themselves a creative producer. There isn't really a huge difference. It just depends on what your specific job is on that particular project, or if you're employed by an organisation or a theatre or an arts charity. And I think it's okay to try things, I think is what I would take away from what Patrick's talked about. Like, it can only benefit you to have tried in one role, to then take that experience and then lead it on to the next. I think that's just what I want to add.
Okay, thank you so much. If we could have the next question from Hope, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Hope, and my question is for Oladipo, and it is, who is the best creative you've worked with, and someone that changed the way you work or was influential to your way of working?
That's hard.
Well, I do have somebody that I work with. That would be an easy way out for this question. Well, I mean, it's hard because there's a poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson called Ulysses. There's a line in it that says, I am a part of all that I have met. And that's how I feel. I think I've learned from everyone I've collaborated with. I can't really point and say one person did everything for me. It's just so many people that I've worked with, and I've learned something valuable that has enhanced me, not just my career, but enhanced me as a person, because theatre is a very collaborative thing. It's a people person industry. If you don't like working with people, then it's not an industry for you. It doesn't matter if you are a writer or a director, it doesn't matter what role you play, it just won't work. I'm also influenced by all the writers that I've read as well, all the plays I've read, all the plays that I've seen. I've learned something, even if it's how not to do. I've learned from all of them. I see myself as being part of a bigger whole, you know, the industry. Everything, my whole experience as a theatre person has been influenced by the books that I've read, the plays that I've seen, and the people that I've worked with.
Yeah, thank you very much for that answer, because if I was up there, I would have said someone, and it wouldn't have been as deep as your answer, so thank you very much, honestly. I would have said, like, Amiga or something, and then that was it, so thank you. So yeah, our next question is from Oliver, I don't know where, alright.
My question is for Rosie, which is, do you ever experience creative block, and what do you do to overcome that when working as a creative team?
I think creative block can mean a few different things, and I think for the purposes of this, it's interesting to talk about maybe when you're working on a project and you have a challenge and something maybe isn't going right, and I think often in the theatre that's in a tech week, because that's a very intense period of time. Everyone's working very hard, everyone's working very long hours. If something's going to go wrong, it's probably going to go wrong in tech week. And I think the way that I would see my role in navigating some of those challenges that might come up in that week is really putting in as much support infrastructure around the people as possible. So for me, when I'm looking at building a schedule for, say, dress rehearsals, tech rehearsals, making sure that there are enough breaks, making sure that those are at sensible times, that people are eating, that there's food available, that there's a cup of tea for them. Small things like that can go a really, really long way. I think in terms of other challenges that I might face in my role, where maybe a project isn't going so well because maybe there's a bit of problem with people not agreeing on something, I see my role there really as a person to communicate and coordinate and try and unstick things and say, okay, well, this isn't working, how can we progress this? Maybe that's getting everyone in a room and saying, rather than just everyone speaking to people individually, let's all sit around a table, talk about what we want and see how we can move it forwards. And so I think I'm always trying to, though on a project, make sure you never get to that point where everything does stop and become quite difficult. Instead, it's trying to anticipate what might be a challenge and what might be a problem. And I think the way that I would do that is by speaking to everyone, knowing how everyone's feeling, knowing what some of the potential challenges might be, and a lot of that will be through a good relationship with everyone from like your production manager to your director to anyone else around you. So, yeah.
Great question, Oliver. Would any of the other panelists like to answer that? Thank you. Let's hand over to Jasmine for a question about resilience.
Alright, so this question is from Mojisola. What is the hardest part of working with others, and what inspires you to continue in your role when things get hard?
Yeah, thank you. I think the hardest part of working with others has to be, just the juggling of so many people and managing so many people. But it's also the joy of the job. And I think to be a director, you would have to have lots of hats on. And my approach to my work is always that it's not brain surgery, nobody's going to die. So whenever anything goes wrong, I kind of just go, well, before people start panicking, actually, we're just making a show. We're here to have fun, make people happy. At the end of the day, nobody will die if anything goes wrong. So I guess that's my kind of solution to kind of every problem that I encounter in the rehearsal. And it's taken me through, even during the pandemic when I've had a show on, people panicking about, oh, what if somebody doesn't turn up tomorrow because they've got COVID and all that kind of stuff. But again, touch wood, we always manage to kind of find a way to get through. What's kept me going, I think, is my love for theatre. So I spent a number of years where I yearned to be in theatre. I trained as a lawyer and I practiced as a lawyer for many years. And as a child, I've always wanted to be in theatre. And in my 40s, I went back to drama school and retrained and then started my theatre career. So for me, every day that I get to wake up and do what I love and what I've always dreamt of doing is a blessing and it's a bonus. I don't look at it as work. For me, it's almost like I'm in retirement and I'm doing what I love to do. So I wake up every day and I just go and do it. So I'm not sure the word resilience is actually in the dictionary of my relationship with theatre. I think it's almost like, if I don't do it, I'll probably die. It's like, it's my food, it's my joy, it's just everything that makes me wake up every morning. So.
Would anyone else on the panel like to answer that question? Like, what's the hardest thing about working in the team?
I just want to say it's a great philosophy for just living, you know.
Yeah, no, it is honestly the one no one's gonna die. That one. Alright. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Some fantastic discussions there. Before we open for questions from the rest of the audience, we have another exercise for you. Under each of your chairs, there should be 2 cards, one green and one red. If you could grab those. And the panelists as well can join in with this question. Alright, I'm going to read a statement. If you agree, hold up the green card. If you disagree, hold up the red card. There are no right or wrong answers, and as I said, panelists can do this as well. A career in theatre is about who you know, not how good your work is. Green, agree. Red, disagree.
Do you read it again?
A career in theatre is about who you know, not how good your work is.
Can we put up logos?
Sorry.
Wait, ask them because he was like.
Oh.
Because you took a while to. You decided.
So how comes you're in between, basically?
Because sometimes it can be a combination of both at times, but normally, I mean, my own experience was, although it took a while, but in the end, somebody took a chance in the end, you know. So, and also I think a lot of theatre is also due to tastes of the artistic directors at times who run buildings at times. So yes, it is. They will acknowledge excellence, but sometimes although a play might be amazing, it might not be the right fit for their audiences. So sometimes the role of artist directors, they have to be pragmatic, and sometimes it's not what they would love to see. Sometimes what they would love to see on their stage. Sometimes there might be other things they might have to consider. But the reason why in the end I raised the red one is because at the end, your responsibility as a creative is to be the best that you can be, you know, to create, you know, work. And it's those who don't even find opportunities in the system create their own opportunities as well. So that's why.
Thank you. I think you want to respond to that? No? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Alright, so the next question is, people from disadvantaged backgrounds will struggle to be successful, to have a successful career in theatre. So green for agree with that, and red for disagree with that. So I'll say it again, yeah? So people from disadvantaged backgrounds will struggle to have a successful career in theatre. Green for agree, and red for disagree. Alright, so Blessing, Sagan belongs you first. Why did you choose disagree? That's fine. Good. Yeah? Are you okay to answer a question? To answer why?
Sorry, the one in the jacket. Yeah. You glasses.
Okay, I'll ask one of the panelists unless everyone's scared. So Patrick, what did you put up?
I put up red.
Okay, and do you want to say why you chose that?
I chose that because I think if you really want to be in theatre, you will go for it. If it's like you, it's in your blood. You will, no matter where you're from, you'll keep doing it. So that's really where it comes from. Success or failure is down to what your work is like, and so if you put your heart and soul into something, it will come through. I think that covers. I can keep talking.
Oh, you can.
Can I just add something? I think, so I work with a youth arts charity at the moment called National Youth Theatre, and I see it across the industry that more and more there are so many opportunities because the theatre is aware that it has historically been perceived as something that affluent people go to for people who are affluent, and actually I think the theatre is trying so hard to make themselves for more people, both on stage, backstage, in the audience, because that's how it will survive and grow. And so I think if you can find those opportunities, and there are so many, like Lewisham Youth Theatre, very localised often, charities, youth arts organisations, and those can be kind of stepping stones on a journey. And so I think if you search those out and you are part of that community, there's absolutely no reason why you can't then take that step into the industry.
Thank you very much.
Number 3, I would rather be poor but recognized for my work than rich and unknown.
My life.
Oh, okay, I'm going to repeat the question again. I would rather be poor but recognized for my work than rich and unknown.
Yeah.
Alright, so Rosie, you have both.
I just want to say that I think it's not about being rich, but it's about, there is a fine line between if you're bringing something to a project and you're working, knowing your value and not. It's about knowing your value, so you don't have to be poor just because you're an artist. You can also know your value, and that doesn't have to mean you're poor. I think would be what I would say.
No, I totally get that. I think while reading the question, I saw it as, because like in the creative industry it's hard. You're not gonna like get money straight away, like big, you know what I mean? So maybe the wording was a bit wrong from when you explained
I
it.
don't think so, no. I think it's just that they're not mutually exclusive, maybe.
I get that. Oladipo. Yeah. You was a bit in between as well.
Yeah, I think for the same reason as Rosie. That's why I think Rosie explained it, because so particularly in theatre, some people may use it as a stepping stone to go on to film and TV where there's more money. But one thing that when you speak to them that they always talk about, you find that most of them, their first love is theatre. And that's why you see so many famous, very wealthy actors coming back to do theatre for the, standard rate. They don't get paid more extra because you're a superstar. They do it because they love theatre. It's something similar to what Moji said about theatre. For most of us, it's not about money. I think there's actually a direct correlation between artists' lack of money and not being good at maths. You know? It's not about numbers that but yeah, I mean, money is important, but it's not, and you do need money to survive. So I'm not trying to be this sort of idealistic artist and money, no, that's not true. But many artists, I've seen artists turn down projects that would make them very, very wealthy. I've seen friends of mine who've turned down buildings like the National simply because they asked them to make a change. If you could just change this part of the script, they said no. and they would go to a smaller venue and get it done. And at times I said, God, I wouldn't do that. Are you crazy? I do it, and then I'll try and do this when I get in there. Find myself in the same position, and end up doing the same thing that they did. Without even remembering, without even thinking. So there's a thing about artistic integrity. And in many respects, it's not about money, it's not about this. It's about you as an artist and what you value, really. And that's nothing, it's nothing against those who would say, yes, I'll take the girl, I'll make the changes. I have nothing, I'm not judging those artists who do. But you'll be amazed that even when, they get into that situation, they still will end up finding a way, getting what they want, getting their vision across. And then you're the artist who said no. Damn, I should have done. That's what I should have done. So it's it's all like that, really. But there is a thing called artistic integrity, and it does exist, and it's amazing when and where it manifests.
Thank you very much for that deep answer again. So now we're going to hand it over to you guys. So does anyone have any questions for the panelists over here? All right, so I saw your hand up first, so can you just pass the mic over to them?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Ayo. I just had a question when you're talking about artistic integrity and also flexibility as well. Like, how do you, us all different types of people in the creative industry, as a producer, you bring things to life, so you have to think about the actuality and how realistic you can do things. But as obviously as directors and designers and playwrights, you kind of bring the artistic integrity as well. So how do you find middle ground between flexibility and artistic integrity? And it's just for the whole time.
Such a great question. That is an absolutely brilliant question, and I think it's a challenge and it's a struggle, and I think there's always that thing of where I've had a theatre space and maybe the show has needed a different configuration, which means losing 40 seats, which means losing that ticket income, and you kind of have to look at how possible that is, and often there's usually a compromise somewhere, and I think it's a really fine line, and I think I see my job as trying to achieve as close as possible to what an artistic vision is, but also bringing a dose of realism to it and making sure that if there's something that is going to be quite challenging to achieve, really explain that and see if there is another way around. I think I see the role often as a producer as being a creative problem solver, and so actually that's just part of it, is to say, okay, well, we can't achieve that seating layout because we need to sell some of those seats, maybe we can look at a different thing, and I think there's always ways around, and I think there does need to be an element of flexibility, because often I work with artists who sometimes forget about their audiences and concentrate a lot on the work, and then that comes a bit late, and so often it's just a case of reminding people about how the work can best be shared. It's hard though, it's a great question. And you might disagree with me on some of that, I fear.
I mean, artistic integrity, I'm constrained by lots of time and, well, not time necessarily, that's going to be the answer, because budget will often be something that I'm given so much time to make something. But my integrity comes in to play when I want it to look a particular way. So I will throw more time into it. I get told off by fellow artists that I'm undermining them as artists, but I feel true to myself to make something as best as I can make it, and go for it. And yeah, that's with the integrity. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it's kind of like what you were saying quite rightly, that you just have to have a lot of flexibility with these things. And I think, because yes, when you pick up a script, you have dreams about what you want this production to be, But at the end of the day, sometimes you have to, you just have to adjust to the reality of what is available, because even sometimes you might want a show to be in a particular configuration and it's not. Sometimes I read reviews of my shows and they would say, oh, if only she had done it this way and that way and that way, and then it would just be perfect. And I'm just thinking, well, yeah, that's what I wanted to do with it. But then the reality of it is, yes, I mean, the theatre doesn't have sometimes you're sitting with a show on the back of another show. And sometimes the theatre doesn't want to be moving seated, but they'll tell you that, well, it's going to cost me this amount of money for me to have to change the seating configuration. So I mean, sometimes, yeah, you want your work to be seen, and you have to just adjust yourself sometimes with the reality of what is available. But yeah, it's a really great question.
So who else had questions? So it's you, and then I'll go to you. So first.
Yeah, this is just for anyone who feels they can answer it. But I'm a writer and I'm kind of working on a script. So how would I go about finding a producer or that kind of thing?
Yeah. I think it's about, if you have a bit of a script or a treatment, it's about sharing that. But I think it's often about having a conversation and thinking about what your end goal is. So if you have a script, think about where that would sit, what you want to achieve from it. Is your next step to develop it further? Because that's what a producer will ask you. And so if you can have as much information in advance of that, and then when you reach out to people who say, can I just have a cup of coffee with you? People are usually pretty kind about giving their time and will probably give you some advice for free, even if they don't have the capacity to take on a project. I think there's so much online resources if you're looking for a producer or indeed for any other creative role. The internet is your friend, Twitter is your friend. You know, all of these resources, asking friends who've had shows on, saying, who worked on that. It might be somebody who's not produced something before, but maybe was taking on more of a general management role, or maybe was a stage manager but who's interested in moving into that. I think there's people who have lots of different skills who you can kind of reach out to say, look, I've got this fantastic idea and I need to take it on a journey, will you help me? And I think that really excites people. But you have to think about what it is that you want from it before you not give that idea away to someone else, but you know that when they ask you that. I would say. Would you?
Yes. In addition, I remember when I first started writing, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anyone because I'd gone to live. My parents took me back to Nigeria when I was young, and I didn't come back here until I was in my 20s. So I didn't know anything. Didn't know anybody. But I knew that I wanted to write for theatre, and I knew I wanted to have a play on. That was all I knew. And I just started writing, and I just started sending the work to all the venues. I bought, they have what they call the Writers and Artists Yearbook. So I went through it. It had the name of all the theatres. So I'm just saying, research is it's key. I went through all the theatres and looked for all those that were specialists in new writing. Because you can't just send to a theatre that doesn't do new work, so you need to know where to send the work to. And those that accept, like sort of blind submissions, anybody can send. Some had, dates when you could send and when you couldn't send. I did all that. I remember, and of course, come from a Nigerian background, I was like, my first play is going to go on at the Olivier National Theatre. I remember there was one night my old flatmate, and he saw me. A friend of mine who worked in an office had photocopied 10 copies of the play. So I was filling them in, yearbook, And when he came in, I was addressing one script to the National Theatre. And he's like, no offense, mate, but who are you? I said, sorry? Who are you to send the play to the National Theatre? Nobody knows you. You should send it to the theatre. Look at the local theatre down the road. You should send it to them first. I said, well, it's the same amount of postage. Not losing anything, you know. He just left the room, he just walked out. But out of it. So National actually sent rejection that, of course, this is the rejection. And then I got a phone call. They said, oh, I'm the from National Theatre. I said, oh, okay, yeah. They said, did you got your script back? I said, yes. So we're not going to do your play, you know that? I said, okay, no need to rub it in. Psycho, you know. Anyway, he says, but we'd like to come in for a chat. Why would I come in for a chat? So I said, okay, yeah, whatever. That was me. So I told my friend, he was an African-American friend of mine, Alfred, I just got this phone call. And he said, oh, what did you say? I said, are you mad? And he dragged me, straight to that. Get in there. And they offered me a 6-week attachment. Yeah. They offered me a 6-week attachment.
From your first play?
I hadn't even had it produced. It hadn't even been produced. It had not been produced, and I was offered a 6-week attachment.
We have a question,
So,
what's an attachment?
So an attachment is you go in there, what they do is you do 6 weeks there, and you can do anything you like. So it's no obligation, it's not like they don't commission you, so it's not like, oh, you write it and then we will put it on. You can do whatever you like, and they actually pay you. And that's why it's an attachment, because it's a paid gig. And you can do it, I've got friends who would say, okay, I'll do 1 week a month. Some will say I'll do 1 week every 6 months. Some, like myself, we did the whole 6 weeks and had to go. And, all the resources are there and so on and so forth. So, I guess it points back to what you said about when we're talking in terms of class, the question of class and opportunity and so on. I wasn't rich or anything, but what I did do was I did my research. So it's true, if you don't know, you don't know, really. It doesn't matter, it's true that maybe those who might be more into it will have more opportunities to be told about those things. But I sort of made up for it by doing my, that's right, yeah.
So next up, Hope, here you go.
This is for everyone on the panel. So if you could swap one job from your job to another one on the panel, what would you swap and why?
I'll just say that I'm very happy in what I do. and I think that's, as you said, it's my life. I really enjoy it. I actually don't want to be in charge. Although, it's nice to have a little bit more say, but actually, I'm very happy in my role. Quite recently, I did. I wanted to make costumes, but I also do a performance. So I'm involved in parades and events, and I was thinking, I'll do an acting course. So I did a 4-evening acting course, 2-week evening acting course. At the end of that, I learned that if you do an acting course, suddenly everything you watch, you're deconstructing. So it ruined all the programs I really enjoyed watching where I suspend my belief and suddenly I'm deconstructing. So I really realised there was something I didn't want to do, and I think that's an important discovery. So I'm quite happy. Yes. And anyone else?
Yes, like Patrick, I'm quite happy because I work as a director and also as a producer. And I guess the closest I probably would also love doing is producing. So, I'm quite happy doing what I do.
I'd say I loved
to go and like spend a day with each of you and to try a bit of everything, because I think that would then, I could then take that forward in my understanding of different people's practices and how they work, because I think that's really key to my role is knowing how people work. Like maybe some people want to develop a play in a certain way and some people want to just do lots of research and development or whatever it is. And so I feel like all that knowledge, if I could come and like be a fly on the wall in each of your offices or studios or rehearsal rooms, I'd be just like learning more and then taking that and then developing that in my own practice. I think I love that.
I feel the same way too. Because you know, when you're a writer, you're creating worlds. So you're practically everything. You're the director. You're the actor. You know, sometimes if you write like a funny line, you're saying it, and you're the actor, the writer, and the audience, because you're laughing at your own. This is how they're going to laugh when I say this line. So you know, you imagine how everything looks on the stage. So in a sense, it's I'm already imagining how all those parts are whenever I work on a project, you know. So yeah, and if it at times, you know, I'm even the newspaper reviewer, you know, and I just plays the best thing since my prayer. You know? So I play all those roles, you know, whenever I work on a project.
Alright, thank you very much. Do we have time for any more questions? Yes, no? No, that's a no. Alright.
Yeah, so we are approaching to the end of our time, but we have one more question from our young producer, Jim.
So my question is also to all of you, is do you have an inspirational quote or piece of advice that was given to you that you think about often?
We've had two already, right? We've had like one from Moji and one from... Yeah, I remember the one that died.
One to add to that, which is something I have to say, is just dressing up. It's just dressing up, it's along the same kind of lines.
Always know where your next cup of tea comes from.
Yeah.
Give yourself breaks and be kind to yourself. That's what's important as well.
I've got one more, dream with ambition.
Can you repeat that, please?
Dream with ambition.
So now I've got a question for you guys. So hands up if anyone has changed what role they would like to do after this discussion. So, have you changed your mind? So, what is it?
So first I wanted to be like backstage and like 60 musical, like pops, and now like as I heard all of you, I'm thinking of doing like writing for like a musical, like 6, or on the stage. So yeah.
Alright, I would like to say a huge thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Lewisham Borough of Culture, We Are Lewisham programme for making this Creative Future event possible, and to all of our guests for all your fantastic contributions.